Yeah, Hunter, what a wonderful introduction. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you too. So, first off, where are you calling in from? Tell me a little bit about your story. How did you get to where you are right now? Like literally physically and maybe mentally.
Fabulous. Well, I am here. You can see my background. This is beautiful Malaga, Spain. So the southern coast of Spain, as much of your audience is probably familiar with, because a lot of people in the UK and Europe have been here. But you may notice, have an American accent. So I am not from here. I'm from Houston, Texas, a long way from home.
Hmm.
But my story started in 2015 in relation to how I got here. That's when I hit refresh on my life and quit my job, packed up my bags, and left Austin, Texas to move to Spain. I did it on my own. I did not get transferred with a company, nor did I come with a partner. So it really was kind of the Wild West of coming here and figuring it. Excuse me.
Oh, you're fine. Water breaks are very important. I am told as a millennial, I am the multi-beverage generation. So here's at least two at all times, three when I'm really feeling full.
Thank you. I had a little tickle in my throat.
Oh
So
yeah, all good.
So that is how I got here. Definitely didn't start working remotely. I know that's what we're talking about today. My journey started with teaching English, and I was able
Hmm.
to transition to remote work, not related to teaching, but more in line with my background after I made my move. And so that's where my story begins.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And so can you talk to me a little bit, maybe right out of the gate, when you first started working remotely, what were some of those immediate dopamine hits that you're just like, this is awesome. And then also you're like, oh, there's all these things I didn't anticipate. What were maybe some of the surprises when you started doing this?
Yeah, so I got my first remote job in 2017. So this was before it became more normalized. And for me, getting that first remote job was like winning the lottery. It was something that felt very intangible. Like I heard people were doing it, but I didn't see how that was going to happen for me. A lot of things were still in office. And so once I got that job that was remote and it was with a US Italian company, I thought, you know what? I'm going to test this out. And I was already living in Spain, but I wanted to hit the road. And so I really took my job on the road for 5 weeks. I did a 5 week trip through Europe, my little workation. And that was that first dopamine hit of being untethered and being able to really work from anywhere, literally
Mm.
working from cafes, taking a break in the middle of the day to go swim in the Mediterranean, things like that. So that
Ah,
was, yeah, that was,
glorious.
I was like, how is this my life?
Yeah.
But with all of the glory does come, I guess, the parts you're not ready for when you're not prepared. And I would
Mm.
say that came with one, chasing Wi-Fi was a big one. Um, because at the time I was
That's a
staying,
great name for a book, by the way. If you're gonna write one, if you haven't already, Chasing Wi-Fi, just offering that
it,
up.
it is. So that is what I was doing. The hotels or hostels I was staying in, although they said they had Wi-Fi, that wasn't always the case when you got there that it was reliable. So
Right.
that was definitely a challenge. And I think also transportation, if you're trying to work normal hours Monday through Friday, but also trying to travel at the same time, planning your flights or trains, or even I was taking boats at time around your work hours, was also a challenge, especially when a flight gets changed from 7 p.m. at night to maybe 2 p.m. during your work hours and you have a meeting at that time. So those are things that I learned about that, I had to be better of having a plan B, or just really having, yeah, some plans in place in case if things started to fall through.
Mm. I I love a second option. As a Gemini, I always need at least two choices at all times.
That is smart. You always need a plan B. Do not, plan A's can always fall through.
Truly, and we don't know what we don't know, right? There's only so much we can plan for, and then you maybe have a plan B. What did you do when neither of those things worked and you had to maybe improvise?
Yeah. So when I was having trouble with Wi-Fi in, the hotel room or the hostel I was at, co-workings weren't as popular as they are now. So that really wasn't an option. So I had to get crafty.
Mm.
I was in a place like Venice where there's like no Wi-Fi in the city, it felt like. And so I had to find either a hotel I could go to or just think, what is a place that would have Wi-Fi? Where are the tourists going? Hard Rock Cafe. Okay, I'm working from the Hard Rock Cafe today.
Yeah.
So things like that, where you really had to think outside of the box to find a solution to the problem. But it was a challenge. Luckily, things have gotten much better since
Right.
then in terms of a lot of places cater to remote workers. But at the time in 2017, it was a challenge.
That's a totally different time. And also having your own hotspot was, I don't even think a possibility yet.
I think it was a new thing. I think I had heard about that and people were, were talking about it, but I
Yeah,
did
and
not have it yet.
outrageously expensive, I'm sure, like any new tech. It was only
Yep.
for the new adopters with a hefty bank account. Yeah.
Exactly. Now you can just tether to your phone, if you have great Wi-Fi on your phone and then problem solved, right?
Yeah. Do you do that sometimes? You just like bounce it off there if you need to?
Yeah, sometimes that's my backup, especially if I generally prefer to work from my accommodation or co-working space. But if I feel like, it's great weather, I want to be around people, I'll go to a cafe and not always is the Wi-Fi reliable. So I have my phone as a trusty backup there.
I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
So, what are some of the challenges outside of Wi-Fi that you may experience when working from another country?
I think a practical one is one, can you even work from that country remotely, right? Because from a legal
Hmm.
perspective, and we can talk about the legal stuff too, but working remotely isn't always as easy as just, having a remote job that you can do from anywhere and going to a country and working from there. So if you're going to be in a country for usually, you can be in most countries for 90 days if you have a passport from the US or the UK or Europe. You shouldn't have a problem. But if you want to stay somewhere long term, you really need to figure out if you need a visa or the legal challenges to that. I would say additionally, time zone differences. So I would love to be working from Thailand right now, but for me and my work, just the time zone differences don't make sense. I don't want to work from midnight to 6 in the morning. So you do have to understand, are there going to be time zone challenges? What can you do to mitigate those? Are there, if you're working with a team, are there core hours you can work together? And then you kind of have free time to work your hours as you please outside of that. But that is definitely something to think about. I think we talked about Wi-Fi, so that I don't need to talk about again. And two other things that I think people don't talk about enough is one is a work-life balance because
Hmm.
we can think, oh my gosh, I'm going to work from Mexico or I'm going to work from the south of France. That is not the same thing as a vacation, right? If you're going to do that. And so there's a lot of FOMO that comes with working remotely from another location.
I mean, I know, right? Like I'm working just on the side of my apartment that doesn't have the window, and I have FOMO of the window behind me sometimes. I can't even imagine if that was like Spain.
Yes, imagine looking at the Mediterranean outside your window, but knowing you have to work till 8 p.m. or there's, a fun
Right.
event for digital nomads or travelers tonight, but you have a call. So you do have to, work on the work-life balance. And that also goes with kind of, rearranging your work hours in a way that works for you in the destination you are. And last, I think it's really important to mention this. Another challenge is finding housing or affordable housing. I think
Hmm.
across the world, everyone has felt this. Prices have gone up, but definitely for short-term housing, touristic housing, which if you're working remotely, you're probably going to be looking for that. I mean, in my city alone, Malaga, where I live, which is a very big digital nomad hotspot, accommodation prices have gone up 20% in the last year alone. So it can
Oof.
be, yeah, it can, you may think, oh, it's going to be so much cheaper for me to go somewhere where it's less expensive, but that short-term housing can really hit you
Yeah. Short-term housing is through the roof no matter where you go
where you are.
now,
Yeah, it's
right?
wild. It's
It's the
wild.
premium that you pay. I think, everybody felt the squeeze, so prices go up, right?
Definitely. And I even heard, I know not everyone's open to hostels, but it's quite a normal way to travel if you're trying to extend your travels or, be abroad for a few weeks, even months. And you can definitely get your own room in a hostel. But I've heard even hostel prices have gotten quite crazy. I mean, you used to be able to get a room, private room for maybe 30 euros or dollars, and now you're looking at 70 to 100 and more in some cities.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's wild. I never did the hopping around Europe and hostel thing, and now I'm like, Am I too old for that? I feel like I missed the boat.
You're never too old. You're never too old. You would be surprised to see the range of ages that are out there.
Oh, I love that. Well, that gives me hope, Seppi. That gives me hope. So, what are some of the, we touched on it earlier, some of the legal challenges working remotely? And in relation to that, we host a lot of job fairs here at Power to Fly, right? We have one this week, and sometimes companies, when you're looking, some are open to working with people in a different country, and some are not. So, can you talk to me a little bit about that legal hoop that you might have to navigate?
Yes, this is so important because a lot of people feel like I scored a remote job, now I can go and work from wherever. And that's not always the case because you need to talk to your employer. So, from a legal perspective, talk to your employer to see if it's even possible. Because a lot of jobs, most companies that are work remotely that have a remote work policy don't necessarily have a work from anywhere policy. And that's not because they want to keep you from having fun and living your best life. That's because they are not going to be compliant as a company from a legal perspective and a tax perspective in a
Right.
foreign country if they don't have an entity there. So if you want to work from Spain, but your company does not have an entity in Spain, they could get in trouble with that. So that's a big thing. You need to talk to your employer. For people who are really gung ho on wanting to maybe move abroad and keep their job, you can possibly talk to your employer from going from a full-time employer, W-2 employer to a contractor 1099. That's a way
Mm.
to sort of get around the loophole from the legal perspective with your company.
Right, because then you're responsible for the taxes because it's not the hands is off the company then.
Exactly. Your
Right.
company is not responsible for you from a legal
Right. They're like,
perspective.
good luck with your taxes. Have
Yeah.
fun.
Have fun out there. Figure it out.
Yep, not our problem.
Well, that's the other thing. The other part is not only talking to your company, but let's say your company gives you the green light and you're able to work in a foreign country. Again, as I mentioned earlier, you need to figure out if you need a visa to live somewhere or to be somewhere for a duration of time.
Mm,
Generally, that's going to kick in if you want to be somewhere longer than after 90 days. But you're going to have to get a visa, and not every country is going to have a visa that you're going to qualify for. For people who are working remotely, digital nomad visas are the visas you should be looking at. But those have certain qualifications. You need to see if you can meet those. And the UK does not have a remote work visa. The Netherlands does not. So there's certain countries that don't have these. France does not have one. So you have to pick a country that has one if this is what you want to do.
mm. And how did you decide on Spain?
Yes. Well, it was a little bit of a gut check there of, I would say, Goldilocks of traveling to different countries and just feeling like this was my place.
Mm,
But at the same time, it was I loved it here and I felt comfortable here, but also there was a visa pathway for me to live here. And so that also played a part in my decision of there was a way for me to not only come here, but then looking further down the line, a way for me to stay here long term.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Did you live anywhere else, or was it the States to Spain?
Yeah, it was the US to Spain, really. That was it. I did a lot of traveling, but Spain has been the only place that I've lived long term, I would say.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting the itch though. Like I said, Thailand is calling. I've been here not almost 9 years now, so I'm kind of ready to try something new.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. I've been in New York almost twice that. I'm not originally from here, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't think I'm a lifer. I think I'm ready to check out somewhere else.
Oh yeah. Well, New
Yeah.
York's a hard city to leave though, but
It
is there
really
is,
is. It really
right?
is, but not in the winter. I want to be anywhere, anywhere but here in the winter. It's beautiful spring now. It just
Yes,
happened this week. It's like 70 degrees outside. This is the best
beautiful.
time in New York right now, is spring and fall. I mean, I guess a little bit with the snow sometimes, like for a week, and then you're like, oh gosh, I gotta get to the
I'm
train. This is
I'm
terrible.
over this. Well, I hear southern Spain is nice as a backup.
Okay, well, I might be DMing you later and we can talk about that.
House swapping?
Oh, I do that sometimes actually. So just saying. I did
Okay,
that with
I do.
someone in New I did it with someone in New Orleans. It was amazing.
Love it. That's how I tend to travel now. So I do recommend that also for people who want to take their job abroad. Look into house swapping. It's a great way if you want to stay somewhere for an extended amount of time. So,
Yeah, it's really great because it's a win-win situation. Someone wants to be there, you have a mutual accountability if you don't know the person super well,
yeah.
there's a trust there because you're both in each other's spaces. And then sometimes you make new friends with like, oh, that worked out. Let's do it again. Like it feeds on itself, right?
Yes, 100%. And you're not paying wild prices. Like I would love to do a New York swap, but I can't afford to be in New York for whatever, 2 weeks, a month. It's just crazy with prices. So
Okay, well, maybe now you
yeah,
can. So let's talk
love this.
after.
Yeah.
See,
Fabulous.
friends, you talk to someone, you never know what's going to happen. That's why you should connect on LinkedIn. You never know what's going to happen with your friends on
You never
LinkedIn.
know.
Yeah.
You never know.
So what time is it for you right now? Let's talk time zones.
Yes. So it is 2:20 p.m. for me over here.
It's 2:20 and it's 8:20
Right.
a.m. for me. And I know a lot of people watching this right now, it's like noon 20, 12:20.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate working with people in different time zones? What are some of the best practices for you? And what are some maybe early pitfalls that you experienced?
Yeah. So I think number one, when you're working with a team, you need to understand those core hours, as I mentioned earlier. Luckily, since the world has gone remote, a lot more teams work asynchronously. So that has helped normalize this. So you're not really doing anything too different, right? Because we're not tied to our coworkers from 9 to 5 every day, most people. And so I think understanding what those core hours are and seeing how they're going to overlap depending on the new time zone you're in. I know when I worked for Power to Fly, I had the pleasure of being a part of the team there, and I was working with Power to Fly from Spain. And so my core hours with the team really were from about like now 2 p.m. my time when New York was getting started to about 8 p.m. here. And then whatever hours I was doing out of that, I could do those when it made sense for me. So I think understanding your core hours is important. Also establishing your hours with your team. So letting them
Mhm.
know what times you're available. Because when, especially if most of your team is in one location and you're the one outlier somewhere else, they're not keeping track of, oh, it's 8 p.m. for her or it's 2 in the morning. So definitely make that clear with your team, put it on your Slack, in where you can put the comment there next to your name. Just put it where it's visible and people know what your hours are so they know when they can communicate with you. And I would say also, is that you should definitely give yourself a little bit of leeway when you first get to a country. So I don't think you should start working the day that you get there, the day after. I like to say give
Right.
yourself
Yeah,
like a
that's a
touch.
bold move.
Yeah, that never works out good for anybody. So give yourself like a
No.
touchdown and a takeoff day where you're really getting settled, testing out the technology, the internet, where you're working from. Yeah, get accustomed to the time zone if it's that big of a difference. So I think that's really important too. And last
Yeah.
but not least, yeah, just if you're working with a team, I can't stress this enough. Just be proactive and be available and let them know when you're working, and when you're on, so that you can manage just being a part of a team in a different time zone.
Right. Yeah, totally. The importance of being clear with boundaries, right? Because
Mm,
it's helpful for everyone because I've learned if I establish boundaries or if I don't communicate boundaries, like if I establish them and then I bend them, or if I don't communicate them, that's actually on me. It's not someone bothering me or they don't know. Like if they don't know, that's not their fault.
exactly. Yeah, and it's hard if you are in a different country and if you don't establish those boundaries, people could, you could feel like you have to be on call from the moment you get up to 10 at night, right? To
Yeah.
kind of cover your hours, their hours. So it's so important to have those boundaries. And one more thing I forgot to mention is also use a time zone converter because
Mm,
it's hard to keep track of like, oh, are they 6 hours behind or they're 7 hours beforehand? So just
yeah.
I like to use World Time Buddy where you can literally pop in time in New York, time where you're at, time where another team member is, and you can see all three time zones at the same time to know
Oh,
exactly what
cool.
time
What's that app called? I love a
it
new
is.
toy.
Yeah, World Time Buddy.
World Time Buddy. Oh, that sounds
Yeah.
fun. Yeah. My calendar, talking about calendars, my calendar, I use, what do I use? Fantastical. What a great name, right?
Oh, I don't
It's
know
really
that. What's that?
good. It, it puts all of my calendars together because I work with Power to Fly, I have my own company, I have freelance stuff, I have many calendars and I have for my personal use, I have like eight so I can see everything, right? And one feature in there that I like is that you can put with certain events always show two different time zones.
I
Like
love,
if you're on this calendar every time and it's like put Cepe's time zone here so I know what it
I
is.
love that.
Love that. And also, I'm going to name check our next moderator and speaker. Sienna Brown is amazing. You know Sienna, of course.
Yeah, no, yes, love
Sienna,
her.
Queen Bee, also taught me so much about calendars just by letting me see her calendar. Do you recall how amazing Sienna Brown's calendars are? I don't know if you ever booked time with her, but she's
Yes,
like, she works in another country. And she is so clear about like, this is my morning, this is what I'm doing, and you cannot book me. And then here's my times. And it's such like, she's such a bad A. Like you see it, she's like, I got my boxing class in the morning. Like, yeah, I'm not messing with you when you're doing that. You know, and it's like so cool to see that. I was like, oh, this is how a boss manages communication and protects their time. I loved that so much because it got me excited for her and also like let me into her life a little bit. Like, oh, that's what you're doing with your time. And then I knew when to book her.
exactly. Yeah, she is the queen of boundaries and managing multiple projects at the same time. I mean, you have to be like that to cut out the noise and just allow yourself to focus at what's at hand. So you don't have all that stuff running in the back of your mind of what else is going on? What do I need to think about? You look at your calendar and you're like, boom, that's where I'm at
Yeah, exactly. So, Seppi, we could obviously talk all day. We're
right
going
now.
to talk more when we're planning our house swap,
Of course,
obviously.
obviously.
Um, but in these last 5 minutes, we had a bunch of questions left. Is there anything that you would like to focus on? I'll let you pick the topic that is really important to you, because I'd also love to hear about she hit refresh as well.
Yeah, I think I'll just talk on one thing real quick because I think it's important, and that's security in
Hmm.
terms of cybersecurity when you're working from another country and VPN. So let me just talk about that
Yeah,
real quick in case if anybody is wondering. I think again, since the world has gone remote, most of these practices you're probably doing already. But of course, when you're in another country, it's best not to work from the public Wi-Fi. Now, of course, if you're going to go to a coffee shop, you may not have a choice. But that's when you may use a VPN, right? To connect to something that's more personal or sensitive there. I will say with a VPN isn't foolproof. There are some challenges. So sometimes you
yeah,
can try to connect to a VPN, and then you find out you can't log onto your company's platform. And so just be aware of that. But definitely just, yeah, be aware of security, use some best practices. I think another one that I see often, and it's wild, but I actually used to do this myself, is if you're at a co-working or anywhere public, don't leave your laptop open when you, I don't know, go to the restroom or go get coffee. Close that laptop when you get up. I see that happening a lot. So I just want to mention that to people as well.
yeah, that's a good one. That's also like very cultural difference. In New York, we don't leave a laptop on a table while we go to the bathroom. That
It's
does
not going to
not,
be there.
no, ma'am. I one time when I was, even when I was in LA and I went to the restroom with, like, I was at lunch with someone and my sister was there. It was like multiple people. I left my phone on the table when I went to the restroom. There's people there. My sister was like, "That was really brave. You left your phone there." I was like, "There are four people at this table. Like, what? What do you think's gonna happen?" But to each their
You
own.
can't trust anyone, right? You can't trust no
I was like, "I got double passwords. You're not getting in there." So, Seppi, in these last 2 minutes, tell me a little bit about She Hit Refresh, how we can keep the conversation going with you. What's the best way to connect?
Yes. So She Hit Refresh, I'm all about empowering women over 30 to figure out their move abroad. So if that is
Mm,
you, reach out to me. You can find us. We have our website, She Hit Refresh, but I'm also very active on Instagram. And we also have a Facebook group. But essentially, for She Hit Refresh is here to teach you how to make this move because a lot of people really just aren't even sure where to start. Or they may be wondering, like, is it past my prime to be doing this? I mean, is this something that I should have done in a gap year or out of college? Or is this something I should wait till retirement for? And I'm just here to tell you that you're never too old and it's never too late to hit refresh. So let's help you figure it out. And we have a huge community. We have about 13,000 women from all over the world, mainly in the US, and I would say the UK and Canada, but it's a lot of women in there trying to change their lives.
I love that. How many thousand? 13, 14,000?
13,000. It's crazy.
Congratulations. That is so impressive. That's such an achievement.
Thank you, Hunter. That's so kind of you. Thank you.
Of course, building community is no easy task, you know. It takes a lot of work and a lot of commitment. So I just love hearing that you have this thriving community, that you're helping so many people, and that they get to help each other too, I imagine, on that Facebook group, right? That's where it happens.
Totally. That's what community is about. It's about pooling our resources and helping each other and sharing what we know, right? Because no one person is an oracle, so we can help each other.
No, as much as I would like to be that, Seppi, I have
We
found
strive for it.
it's good to have goals, but also realistic expectations of myself.
You know yourself.
Know thyself. I'm trying. I'm working on it. I'm getting to know myself in these later years in life, and it's
Oh,
mostly nice.
it is. It's a journey.
It is a journey. That's right. Seppi, this was such a delight. I'm so glad we got to do this, and I will definitely be hitting you up. And I hope to see you again soon. Please come back. It's always nice to have family back here at Power to Fly.
Thank you so much, Hunter. This was such a pleasure, and I'm excited to watch the next session with Sienna and Gonzalo. So thank you
I
again.
know, right? Two boss bees coming up. All right, Seppi, I'll
Right.
see you later.